and welcome to Birth Through the Veil. I'm Melissa Camruden. This week, Sequoia Glastonbury is with me talking about being called inward and honoring our cyclical natures as women. We're talking parenting teenagers, aka the second toddlerhood, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. Our teens are calling us to more connection and more soul parenting, and we get into all those juicy talks. Sequoia is part of Jane Hardwick Collins' team and will be at Earth Daughters with an offering, as well as at the other School of Shamanic Women Craft events that are happening in Canada. Sequoia and Jane and their team just wrapped up their time in Mexico and Toronto and Montreal, and they're headed to Cochrane, Alberta this weekend, and will also be holding events in Golden, BC right after Earth Daughters and Vancouver, BC in July. As Jane mentioned in our conversation, which is episode 38 of this podcast, this is her last tour abroad, and if you want to see her after this, you have to travel to Australia. I cannot wait to connect with these women at Earth Daughters, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be eyeing those Vancouver tickets as soon as I get back. In the meantime, enjoy this conversation with Sequoia. Welcome. How are you today?
Good. I'm so good. Thank you.
Yeah. What's the weather like where you are?
Right now, it's a bit of a glorious day, actually. It's like blue skies, sunny, warm, but not like stinking hot. It's great. So good.
It's like that here too. It's just like
where are
the best days. I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, nice.
So just like one of those delightful spring days.
Yeah, beautiful. I used to live in Victoria years and years ago. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been everywhere.
Well, I grew up in Toronto, like Mississauga, actually.
Oh, okay. Are you Canadian?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Great.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So and then I moved out here like, I don't know, 20 years ago or something, and was just like, I think I'll stay. I think it's good.
Yeah.
I think
like
this
it?
is a good, yeah,
You
it's
must.
great. It's an awesome place to live. It's really good.
So tell me, what kind of things are lighting you on fire in your life right now?
Well, I mean, I think what's kind of, taking a big piece of my life this year is coming back into teaching the Four Seasons Journey, which is a year-long program with an amazing group of women and other teachers. And we took a year off last year here in Byron from that. And so coming back into it this year has just been this amazing, like, oh my God, like, I can't believe we missed a whole year of this. Like, it feels like really necessary. And what's actually really interesting is obviously it's a different group of women every time that come, and because they do their year journey and then they graduate and go off and do all the amazing things that they do, and that the teaching crew remains a little bit fluid depending on who's doing their training and whatever. But it kind of feels like even those women who showed up for the year are like, they felt that it didn't happen for a year. Like, I've just heard some of the things that they've said that, like, oh yeah, like, it didn't happen last year, and and they all feel like super I don't know how to describe it, but like really connected into the process already. We've only had 2 gatherings so far, and it feels like this really cohesive, beautiful group. And there's something about having the time away from that energy, because it's a big energy that you carry for a whole year, like when you're taking a group through something like that. So it just feels really amazing and special to be back in it. So yeah, and it's actually funny because I'm going to Canada soon. Next week I'm leaving, and then going to be at Earth Daughters and teaching, supporting a program that's happening over in Canada as well. And basically I get back, and like 2 weeks later we go into our next gathering. So it's pretty, it just feels like a really beautiful space to be inhabiting again after having a bit of time off. So I'm feeling pretty excited about it all.
Tell me more about that. I don't know about this program.
Oh yeah. So it's called the Four Seasons Journey, and it's a year-long program. It's kind of the main program that is taught at the School of Shamanic Woman Craft, which is where I'm a teacher and do a lot of the administration work. So it's a year-long process that kind of takes women through really exploring in depth their rites of passage, starting kind of unraveling their birthing imprint through making a drum and going through like, what does it look like to kind of be in a circle, to be in a healed sisterhood? Like, how do we create this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is what we want for the most part. When you ask people, they're like, oh yes, I'd love to have a community of women that connected with and all of this. And then it's like, okay, well, how do we actually build that then? Because it doesn't just come out of nowhere. So
It's a skill.
it's a skill. Yeah, exactly. And a practice,
Yeah.
and so everything that we're learning and doing in that space is learning how to create that for ourselves. And so every gathering that we do prepares us for the big piece, which I'll get to. But so, we make a drum, and then we do like in-depth stuff around the full moon and deep kind of childhood wounding and going through big transformational processes around that. Then we kind of work with dark moon energy and the descent, and like looking at like, who are we when we're not all the different kind of faces that we wear as women, like sisters and mothers and daughters. And like, when you strip back all of those personas that we carry and that we are, like, who are we, in the core of that underneath. And all of that's a bit of like a preparation for our wilderness solo, which is when we go out bush for 10 days together as a group and we build a village, like we build a women's village.
Wow.
and then the women, they go off for a 3-day, 3-night solo, and then we hold the camp for them, while they're there. And there's lots of big stuff that happens before that, and then a big integration process at the end. But ultimately we're building the village. And often, what we hear when we nobody wants to go home. They're all like, we just live here forever. And it's like, well, yeah, that's the dream, right? To like live like this forever. And then the integration is then, how do you take this amazing thing that you've created out in the wilds? How do you then take that home into real life? I mean, it's all real life, but obviously we have families and jobs and, mortgages and all the things. So then how do you take that? How do you take that magic that you've created and then integrate that into, the world that you inhabit in other places? And then so we do a lot of integration around that. And then the last gathering is like a graduation and a celebration, and all these beautiful women get to bring a piece of themselves to share with the group. Like, so they might do, I don't know, like create a ritual or do a presentation or bring something that they do in their jobs and bring it to us as like a process. And it's really beautiful,
Yeah.
And because it's like this year-long container, you just feel super connected for the whole year. Like there's lots of, messages, like, chat groups and other places where we can kind of meet up during the time and stay connected. And it's just really beautiful. And it's funny, like having had a year's break, to realize how much, having done it for the last basically since my daughter was born. She's 14 now. So I've kind of been doing it almost every year, basically, since she's been born. It was such an anchor in my life in terms of like, oh, it's nearly full moon gathering time. Must be March, like it was, I didn't even know what the dates were. It was such a just like points in my life that was like, oh no, I can't plan anything for September because we're going to be going on our wilderness camp, and then when that wasn't there, it was like, wow, like I really feel like like a bit like like totally untethered, like untethered to a process that had been sort of, ruling my life for that many years. It was a really good clue and reminder of how easily it is that we can become detached from, all the processes and things that keep us grounded, steady, like lots, like I was like, I'll have free time. Like I had no free time. All my time got filled. It's so, it's so easy to slip out of all the things that, keep you connected, grounded, all the things that you like, doing a moon thing, or staying on track with like, for whatever it is that's important to you. But like for me, it's kind of like, noticing where the moon is and, doing those little rituals and things that keep me connected. And often, people have like will often say things like, just go outside and look at the moon. I'm like, I live in the Northern Rivers. It's cloudy like every day of my life. Like you can't see the moon half the time. So, having like a tracker, so like where you are, in your own body cycle, and then how that relates to, everything else that's going on. And what I realized and what I noticed when I had that kind of disconnect from the thing that keeps me super grounded and connected was that all the other things started falling away. Like I would just be, I'd let the space got filled with heaps of other work and heaps of other family stuff. And I was almost busier than I was, than when I was teaching, because the space just kind of, expanded. But I lost a lot of those little spaces where I would have those connections. And so it was a good wake up call for me in terms of how easy it is to slip out, of those places. And then, I guess what's required to keep that continued kind of awareness, like awareness of your own body, of how it connects to the earth, to the outside rhythms that influence us, and how it actually is super important, to keep that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Our I guess in our world it requires like direct attention to it all the time because our
Totally.
lives are not calling us inward. That's not where
No.
life is right now. Like it would have to be with intention.
Totally. And then those things that do call us inward, like, when you're bleeding and it's pretty
Mm-hmm.
obvious that your body's, calling you inward, like I turned 48 this year. So I'm like definitely in perimenopause at the moment. And whereas like I'm cycling pretty regularly at the moment, there was a little period of time where it was sort of like doing like weird things. So it was like, I didn't even have that as a map. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, wow, that map's completely different and changing. And so it was just like the kind of like, oh, well, I know my body really well. I know exactly like, when I'm ovulating, when I'm bleeding, when I need to rest, all of that super clear is suddenly just like, nope, like you actually have no idea what's going on. And then that's like another like snip of kind of like, okay, like just free floating here in the unknown, really. So it was very much like a void experience, I suppose,
Mm-hmm.
in that time, away from that, which was, not like the void is. It's not a bad thing or a good thing. It just is, it's just what it was. And so it's really
Yeah.
beautiful to be back, fully immersed in that teaching space this year, and bringing that through with me, like, okay, like I had this experience of disconnect or untethered or whatever, and can bring that kind of information, I suppose, into my teachings in terms of like, yeah, just those reminders of like finding those places and ways that we can, stay connected. Because, like what you said, like we're not, we live a fairly outside life here, in Australia where it doesn't snow and like it's,
Mm-hmm.
really, beautiful and you're outside a lot and houses are inside outside. But we're not like, when we live on 4 acres and we're still like, have all the modern conveniences,
Mm-hmm.
like we're not living off the land here. We're not that kind of, we're just living on a beautiful piece of land that we caretake and connect with, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not that kind of like, we're not being ruled by um, you know, the sun. Like we don't get up with the sunrise. We don't go to sleep when the sun goes down. Like we're outside of those kind of deep
Yeah.
earth rhythms that some people do have an opportunity to live by. But, like I've got two teenage kids. Like that's just so not how we're living.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're living the teenage life cycle right now.
Yeah. That's a whole other thing.
It's a whole other thing. It's just like you do the toddler years and you just think, oh yeah, toddler years, like full on, like little kids, and then suddenly you have like teenagers, and you're like, holy shit,
I
it's like having a
know.
toddler again.
Yeah, but with way less control. I know.
That's it.
We have five kids, and the oldest is
Okay.
16, and the youngest is
Yep.
1. So we have like
Wow.
a full span, and I'm like, it just gives so much perspective to the baby years when you thought it
Yeah.
was so hard. I'm like, their problems are so easy to solve. Like the
So
3
easy.
and 1 year
Boob.
old. I know, like it's dramatic and intense, and like we're tired. Like all those things are true. But this time is so fleeting. It's so short. I realize now, and I can
Yeah.
solve the problems like now. Whereas like the
Yeah.
16-year-old,
Yeah, it's
whoa,
big
it's like a
stuff.
lot of winging it as a
It's
parent.
yeah. Yeah, fully.
Hmm.
And it's just almost like needing the same level of like time and attention. Like, it's kind of like, I don't know, like I kind of feel like, and maybe it's just some of the kids that, you know that we've met through school and stuff, but sometimes it feels like there's a bit of like like they're kind of grown, like, so
Mm.
it's cool, like we don't have to do as much, or they've grown up so they can just kind of go off and do their thing, and
Hmm.
gives a bit of freedom over here, like for parents to kind of, do their thing, and that's cool. But I'm like, well, I'm having the opposite experience. I'm like actually feeling like I'm, needing to do more, give
Mm.
more, and be way more present than I had to be even when they were like 10, like
Yeah.
it's like a totally different space to be
Yeah.
inhabiting with them. It's been really interesting. Like I love it. I love them being teenagers. It's cool.
Yeah, it
But
is.
it's like a totally, yeah, it's huge. Well, you've got 5 kids,
I
so
think it's
like
like
it's
it's
wild.
like you were saying before, like how like being like even in perimenopause or being like away from your
Mm.
container, how that called you away from the primal pieces of life that keep us tethered. And I think like toddlers and babies keep us tethered to the primalness of
Mm.
parenting. Like you have to literally feed them. Like literally
Mm.
feed babies, you're breastfeeding, you're putting them to sleep, you're like the nurture and the caretaker in all ways, like all primal ways. Like the 16-year-old, like the teenagers don't need that. They can
No.
feed himself. I could leave him for a
Yeah.
weekend. Like it would be fine. But if I don't, like I need to still pay attention to like tethering
Yeah.
myself into the parenting role there, which has just changed.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's a like a really beautiful way of thinking about it, actually. Like, because it's, yeah, like my son's 19 and my daughter's 14. So I'm kind
Mm-hmm.
of in that space of like
Mm-hmm.
one's kind of really sort of quite grown up, but still lives at home, and the other
Mm-hmm.
one's just hitting her stride as a teenager. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is wild.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like I was just changing diapers. That just
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
fully. I hear
Yep.
that.
It's crazy. So this container you were talking about, is that an
Yeah.
in-person thing?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's in person. And
Yeah.
so we meet, like those gatherings happen like 6 times over the year. So we kind of
Mm-hmm.
come in, and then there's a bit of a break, and then you come in again and over the time. And there's other things that they do in the meantime. Like they go to these some one-day workshops to kind of go really deep on their sort of real rites of passage kind of imprints. Like
Mm-hmm.
they one workshop just about, menstruation and menarche, and then one about pregnancy and birth, and one about menopause, and one about aging and old age and dying. So they go and kind of do these external, it's all part of the school, but it's taught
Yeah.
by different people.
Cool.
Yeah, these kind of intense sort of one day workshops to have a little bit of a deepening experience. And then obviously like, you know, all the preparation beforehand, which, for some things it's can be a lot, like especially when you're about to go off on a wilderness a wilderness adventure. There's a lot of prep there to kind of get ready and, be prepared and be ready to meet whoever it is that you meet when
Mm-hmm.
you're out in the bush with no distractions.
Yeah. Oh, that
Yeah.
sounds awesome. How did you get
Mm.
involved with this sort of work?
Yeah, well, I was a doula
Mm-hmm.
initially. So like when I had my son, after I had my son, I was, in that space of like, oh my God, this is amazing and like life changing, and had this huge experience with his birth, and was always really interested in women's business and women's work. And it felt like a really natural like place to go and study and be a doula. And I kind of, contemplated studying midwifery, but in Australia, like it's quite a, you have to do a lot of work in the hospital before you can
Mm-hmm.
go and kind of be on your own and
Here too.
well, yeah, it's huge. And my partner is a doctor, and I was like, I just watched him go through med school and how hard that was. And
Mm-hmm.
like in terms of, having to kind of put your own beliefs aside and do medical med school things, and have
Yeah.
to just kind of be in the hospital system and just massive slog before you can come out the other end. And I was like, he was like, I'm fine, like it's fine. He's the kind of person who was okay, but I'm like, I'd probably get kicked out of midwifery
Yeah.
school. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I think I might just avoid that entirely. And so I went and yeah, did doula stuff, and so I could
Mm-hmm.
support women in the way that I felt was important, which was to really just hold them in their, process and support them, and not be involved in any of the, medical things or anything like that, and just get to be there for them no matter what, no matter how they wanted to have their babies, no
Mm-hmm.
matter what was happening, where they were, any of that. I'm like, I can just be there and help support you. So I did that for a number of years. And I came upon Jane's work. So she's the founder of the school,
Mm-hmm.
Jane Hardwick Collings, and she was running like a 3-day pregnancy workshop near where I was living. And so I thought, oh, well, that sounds awesome. Um, And she had this year-long course. It wasn't called the Four Seasons Journey then. It was the School of Shamanic Midwifery. And I was like, that sounds amazing. I really want to do that. It's right up my alley, but I want to meet her first. So I went to the 3-day pregnancy workshop because I'm like, well, that's cool. Like it's for pregnant mamas or birth workers or, whoever can kind of come to that. And yeah, so that was my first taste of the work. And it was amazing. Like I just remember being in that space and kind of going, I've never sat like in a circle like this before and been so fully feel so safe and so able to kind of, it's a bit scary talking in a circle for the first time, but I was like, okay, like this feels like the right place to be. And then so when she did the second round of her year-long course, I signed up for it. And I was pregnant with my daughter when I started. And so I, went to my first gathering when I was like 38 and a half weeks pregnant and was like, I think I might have the baby this weekend. I feel like extremely pregnant. Yeah, I was like, there was like heaps of midwives in the circle. It was great. I was like, I'm fine. Don't worry. I'll just have the baby here if that happens. Anyway, obviously I didn't, but yeah, so then she kind of came along with me to everything. So we did this year-long process in tandem, which was really beautiful, actually, because I had this whole circle of aunties, like, there to kind of help me. I don't know, not even help me, but just be there, like message me witness. And be, witness. And they like drummed for me when I was in labor with our newly like made drums, and just having a beautiful connected sisterhood, to kind of go, I've just had this baby and it's so necessary to have that. And I just felt like super held and loved. And, it was, and then the work itself was really transformative for me. Like I got so much out of it on a personal level that I was a bit like, well, I can't just walk away from this. Like it feels like a really deep calling to stay here and be here and continue learning this way. So when my daughter was a little bit older, because she was just only like little, I started apprenticing with Jane. So going back and doing, like a 4-year training with her to come out the other end and be able to teach the work. So then I just started doing that, and I've just been doing that ever since, really.
Oh yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
You found it. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And I think just seeing like being, like it can be really hard. Like it can be really hard. It can be really full on. And there's a lot to do and there's a lot to hold, and to be in the work, it's huge for the women who show up, like it's really big to kind of just go, raw, like here's all my inner world and I'm like going to pull it all apart and, like see what's there and dig out all the gold from all the muck and then put it all back together and come out as a I know it sounds a bit trite, but like, as a new person, because that is actually what happens. And to see that over and over and over again, that's what happens. And to see like who shows up at the beginning and who like leaves at the end. And you see there's like, magnificent transformations of these women. It's just like, how can you not like be here and do this? Like, it doesn't matter how hard it is or like, that it rained the whole time and everyone's like in the mud and like, and just like, oh my God, like those things that make things really hard. It's like, it doesn't matter, because all I need to do is just keep remembering, well, in myself, how I felt when I finished, but also what I've seen every year since then is just like, I know it's coming. Like, I know it's coming for you. And I know, well, like when you show up for the first gathering and it's like really scary and you're like, I don't know anyone. And like, what the fuck are we doing here? And like, why are we peeing on the grass? And like, why are we sleeping on the ground? And like, all of these things are a piece of taking us into those places so that we can do that inner unraveling, like it's all, there's a method to the madness, like there's a reason that we camp from the very beginning, because you're going to sleep for 3 days and 3 nights by yourself in the bush. So it's kind of a good idea to prepare, like that. It's like, it's kind of like, there's a reason for it all. And knowing what comes, it's just kind of like, just get so excited for everyone who shows up. Cause I'm like, I know it's going to happen for you. Like, I know where this is going. I know. Yeah. So it's that thing that anytime anything kind of gets a bit like, oh God, it's really hard. Like, are we really doing this again? Like, I'm going to miss all these things at home, or I'm going to miss someone's birthday, or like, whatever it is that you kind of sacrifice. It's kind of like the knowledge of what comes for these beautiful women is worth it,
Yep.
like it's just worth it.
Yeah. I can see that. Big transformations.
Mm.
I mean, that's
Huge.
Those year-long containers are so beautiful. Hey, it just
So
gives
beautiful.
so much space.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Even I could see that, even like in many ways, like women's festivals can be like little pieces.
Totally.
Into that, right?
Yeah.
When you're outside, you're camping, you're just together, it's just women. It's a very different experience than any other thing.
It's so beautiful. And like, I'm pretty excited because I haven't been to Earth Daughters yet. But I've my friend's been, and so she's, told me about it, and I've like obviously seen the photos and stuff. And I'm like, it just looks so beautiful. Like, it just looks like such a beautiful, space, I mean, even just where it is in nature is just going to make such a, big impact on what you're experiencing.
Yep.
Like, and it's just awesome just being out just with women and having this beautiful time. Like, I'm stoked. I can't wait to go.
Oh, yeah. I know. Me too. I'm really looking forward to it. What are you bringing to Earth Daughters this year?
I'm bringing a little workshop I think it's called Reclaiming the Witch or something like that. I can't actually remember what I called it. But what we're going to be doing is a spell. So I'm going to be taking whoever feels called to show up in that space. We're going to be exploring, kind of exploring the witch wound, like, why are we so turned off by this word? And like, why do people shy away from it? And, all the things that we probably know, but doing maybe a bit more exploration of how that lands in us personally, like where's our sort of like, don't call me that, or whatever that looks like in us. And then having doing a bit of journeying, because I just love to take women on journeys. And then we're going to create a big spell together. So like really like create a big ritual space and make a spell of reclaiming her in us. So, that aspect of ourself that is the wild woman or the wise woman, or the one that's, that we've kind of cast out, or the piece of us that gets cast out by society, like whatever that is, like whatever kind of pings that sort of witch word and witch wound in us. And then so doing a real reclaiming of that in a big spell process. And then we'll see how it goes based on how many people show up. It's always a bit fun with ritual when you kind of go, well, I don't know, like there could be 5 people or there could be like 100 people. Like, I don't know. Right. So I've done it once before at a festival, and there was a really big group of women. And so we ended up doing like a big spiral dance in the middle of it. I don't know how we managed to do it in time. Like, to be honest, I was a bit like, what? I don't even know how long we've been here for, but it all worked out. So it's like trusting the magic and the process of what you're kind of co-creating together. So that'll be kind of what's happening at Earth Daughters. And then, we'll just see what happens in terms of where does the spell go, where does the ritual go, and it's always informed by who's there. So that will make it, so it'll be super fun.
I kind of love that flexibility piece in creating, where you actually can't control all the pieces, right? You can make whatever plan you want, but it's going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Like just setting yourself free to that.
And it's like there's obviously elements that I want to bring in that, like, we'll be doing, but at the end of the day, it's just like, who knows?
We co-create.
We co-create. And like if there's, like only a few women, we do something, much more intimate and sharing and being able to really hear each other. And if it's a really big group, then it just becomes a much bigger kind of, big energy kind of situation. So we'll see what happens. Watch the space.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds fun. Tell me, like, okay, so you've been doing this work for a while now. I think you said from when your son was born, you started with the doula work, right?
With the doula work. And then when he was about, like probably when he was like 3 or 4 is kind of when I met Jane. And then I started my 4 seasons journey. So that was my real kind of first intake in the work when I was, pregnant with Chili. So, she's 14 now. So that was about that long ago.
What, Like, what are some of the poignant pieces this has brought to your life and to your
Mm.
parenting, this
Well,
journey?
that's a good question actually, but I feel like in my parenting, it's just that there's that little piece of like, you know, what you learn from yourself, right? Like, so whatever you learn about yourself from the birth of your children is going to
Mm-hmm.
like give you a bit of like a formula on how to do things in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your own birth imprint, like how you're born, impacts how you do stuff in the world, right? Like, so if like I was an easy birth, so I things come quite easily to me. That's kind of my birth imprint. Like things are quite easy, but that's kind of overshadowed by getting my mom would compared my birth to my sister's birth. And so what ended up happening is that I would have this natural inclination to constantly be comparing myself to other people
Mm-hmm.
because that it's almost like that was just like imprinted upon me. And, that's just how it is. Like, I can't change it. And the other thing that's come in with this easy birth is that sometimes I overcomplicate things and expect them to be difficult, which I would imagine that my mum was having an experience of because my sister was born first and she had quite a traumatic, not pleasant birth
Mm-hmm.
experience with my sister. And then my birth was like really quite easy and not very painful and just kind of like this cruisy sort of birth. But I would imagine that she would have been thinking like, God, is this going to be terrible again? Like, because
Mm-hmm.
of course you
For
would,
sure.
of course you'd have that in your mind. So I kind of I sort of take that into how I do things in the world. And then when I had my son, what I really learned about myself in that birth is that like I learned what labor meant, like I really learned what it means to work hard because I didn't have to work hard for things before.
Mm-hmm.
Things were always really easy. So like I didn't really understand like discipline or really having to put your mind to something. It was just like, oh, it just happens. It's just easy. Like, what do you mean? Like, study. Don't you just get A's? Like, why do you have to study? Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand. So I really learned that from his birth. I learned how to really do the work. And so when I took the lessons that I learned about myself, from his birth into my daughter's upcoming birth, I did the work in the lead up, so I wouldn't have to learn that lesson again. And so I, did all the things that I needed to do to have what I wanted. So I wanted to have home birth with her. And so I was like, okay, so I'm going to have to like find a midwife and I want a doula and I want my friend to be there. And I want to have like a blessing way because I didn't have one with my first baby. And my sister threw me a baby shower and I want to have a virtual like mother blessing because I have lots of friends who live overseas and I want to connect with
Mm-hmm.
all of them. And I want like food and I want to be prepared, like all these things. Like, I had this huge list of all the things that I was like, that's what I need to be able to like birth my baby in a way that like, that's what I want, because I didn't get anything that really I kind of, there was a big story with Jara, so we don't need to get into, but, so I did all of that work, did the pre-work. And then I had this beautiful experience with her that like I had an ecstatic birth with her. Like I had a amazing peak life experience, oxytocin birth with her. And so what I learned about myself is that, if I can do the work and, really trust and surrender in that space, that everything I need is within me and the outcome is going to
Mm-hmm.
be ecstatic. So if I'm in a space where I'm like, I don't know what to do, like I'm stuck or this is terrible or whatever, like I can go back to my birth formula and go, okay, just remember what you have to do. Like you have to do the work. You can't like kind of skip the hard bit. You actually have to do
Mm-hmm.
that bit. And then, and then trust the process, surrender, whatever it is, those things that happen. And then, you can trust that the outcome is going to be like a ecstatic outcome. So that's been
Mm-hmm.
a massive piece in terms of how like what I've kind of learned over the years of how to create and apply that formula. And in terms of parenting my children, it's like their birth imprint is a huge thing in terms of how they show up in the world. So like my son he didn't breathe when he was born. He was like he didn't need full resus, but he needed a bit of like help. And I often think like, if he had been born in, like the 60s or 70s, he probably would have been like hoisted up by one leg, slapped across
Yeah.
the ass and been like, in his body.
Mm-hmm.
But, 2006, he was taken away and put on the little trolley and given oxygen and,
Mm-hmm.
like, and he was fine. Like, there was no issues and he's all good. But his way in the world is that he just takes his time. And I'm always feeling like I'm going, come on, come on, let's get moving. Come on, put your shoes on. Let's go. And even now at 19, I'm like, what are you doing with your life? Like, are you going to study next year? Are you like, do you have a job? Like, what are you doing? And so I feel like I'm constantly doing that motion. And so it like, I could get really frustrated with that and be like, oh my God, like I have to like, make my son do stuff. Or I can just remind myself that I'm like, just his birth imprint is that he does it in his own time. Like he came into himself and he breathed and he was perfectly fine. He just took whatever he was doing out in the cosmos, who knows, right? Like before he decided to come in. And he's like that now. He's just off in his own, like, creative process, and he takes his time. And if I can just remember that, then I don't get frustrated about it. So that's been an amazing piece.
Yeah.
And for my daughter, who was born in this like, peak experience, oxytocin, endorphin flood, like ecstasy birth, that I was just like, yes, like let's do this again. Like I've never felt so good in my life. If it's not good, she's not doing it. Like she always wants a peak experience. And if it's not feeling like a peak experience for her, like far out, good luck, and it's really, and that's a hard one, like that's almost a harder one than like, like, come on, let's hurry up and go. Because as a mom, you're trying to not create those experiences, but you're managing, everything. And so I just have to keep coming back to that kind of like, she's all right. She's not whatever. It's like, it just has to be really good for her to feel like she's having a thing. And so like when I kind of plan things to do with her or going to concerts or like whatever it is that we're doing, it's just like, I'm like, right, let's just make it the best. Like you want to sleep on the ground and camp out so we can be at the barricade for Billie Eilish. Okay, let's do it. Like, I would never do that myself, but I'm like, let's have a peak experience here because that's
the
what
bar's been set.
Yeah, it's like that's what you're chasing, And so sometimes, obviously, like you can't always have a peak experience, and like you got to bring her back down to earth a little bit. But in those times where it matters, like if I can remember that, I'm kind of like, okay, so that their birth imprints have been a massive impact on my, like how to parent them and how to be with them and how to work with them. And not even like, I don't explicitly like tell them their birth experience, because that's for them to figure out how it's impacted them themselves. But for me, to, as their mom, to kind of know like I can see how they're operating in that space. So I'm kind of like, all right, well, let's just use this because then it's, it's helpful.
Yeah.
So that's been a massive thing. As I can imagine, if I didn't have that awareness, I'd just be really frustrated all the time.
Yeah, because it feels like behavior out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, I could drive myself nuts just telling my son to hurry up, and then I just keep, or like going like, why isn't he making any decisions? But he actually is making heaps of decisions, thinking about stuff. He's just not sharing because he's like off here somewhere thinking about it. And then he comes in and goes, oh, by the way, like, I've decided to do blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh, great. Okay, awesome. So it's, so that's been huge. It's been a huge piece. And I think also too, just trusting like that if they chose me, as their mom and their dad as their dad, and they came in at the time that they came in and to be born then, that, that everything that I'm doing is okay, like I don't have to, they've come for this life that we've created together. And so it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
Can just relax a little bit. It was, my son was a really, really tricky baby who's like very screamy and cried all the time and was, like it was pretty hard. It was hard to parent him when he was a baby. It was hard to be a new mother. It was just like thrown off the deep end, like totally just going like, don't they sleep? Like, like I don't understand what's happening here. So it was interesting to kind of, when I had my daughter, to have already been kind of in having my toes in this work and starting to do this work, just noticing how much differently I could be with her in that baby space. Like just the difference in me, in that space was huge, like so huge. So, and again, like just you do what you have to do, like I'm not going to judge myself on how that first round was, because it's just what, like I didn't know anything else, and that's the situation we were in, like no family around, like had to move cities. Like it was hectic,
Oh,
like
yeah.
it was totally hectic. But yeah, the more that I know myself, which I learned through the work, I could just be so much more, present as a mother, and able to just, yeah, be there for them,
Yeah.
however it is that they need, and not my own stuff.
And like the only way we get to know that is through the hard times, right? I was just at a women's
Exactly.
circle
Yeah.
this weekend where we were talking, someone shared a birth story and we were just all reflecting on what that brought up for us, and how like things you didn't know in your first birth that you wish you could have known because it would have been different. But the only reason you know you need to know that is because you went through the
Yeah.
hard thing.
Yeah.
Like there's no other
Exactly.
way. If you don't
Yeah.
experience some adversity and like make some like mistakes or like some non-ideal decisions or have some non-ideal experiences, you never get to know the depths of yourself
No.
or where you want to go. Like that's
Yeah.
what informs the next birth. That's why the next one's different. And
Yeah.
the one after that,
Exactly.
like for however long it
Exactly.
goes.
And then it's like that beautiful thing of like, well, what'd you learn about yourself out of that? Even if it was terrible, even if
Mm-hmm.
something was awful, like, but you still learned something. Like maybe it's that you need to speak up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel like you had your voice, like that's such a story from so many women that like no one listened to me, or I wasn't heard in what I wanted, or they just, did whatever they had to do and they didn't even like what. So maybe what you learned through that terrible experience is like, actually, you have to speak up for yourself, and really knowing that or seeing that or like whatever that looks like. So that piece is gold that comes,
Yeah.
So that's the beautiful thing of like, there's no bad experience. Like not to say people don't have trauma. Like, of course, there's so much trauma in that world, but it's not a bad experience. It grows you into who you're going to become as a mother. And, and I guess the big thing is to have someone help guide you, through that. So you're not lost in that, so you can, because it's like, I think that's the thing. It's like, if we haven't got someone to kind of remind us of that stuff, like you get lost in it. You just get trapped in the bad feelings or in the really, like hard work of early motherhood, especially first time, it's massive. So it feels really important to have people like, doulas or midwives who are, have the space and time and the training to kind of like, be able to have those conversations after the birth, like to really help women make sense of that whole experience. Like not just on a, like this happened, but like, and what'd you learn about yourself? Like, where's the gold here? Because there's always gold, there's always gold. And it's just a matter of, unraveling it. And that's pretty much what we do in the course, is just excavating all of those experiences, whichever ones they are that feel important and feel like called for the women to look at, and like excavate them for the gold, and take that and go, okay, like I can be different now, I can live differently now, I can react differently, whatever it is, and then because all that pattern stuff's always going to come up, like all that stuff about like with my birth imprint, like I'm always going to do that. I'm always going to start off by going too hard, can't do it, or like, oh, someone else is already doing it, so I can't be bothered. I'm just like, what, like, like comparison-itis, and the gift is to not get stuck in that and to kind of go, oh, there's my old pattern again. Oh, I'm doing that birth imprint again. It's not actually too hard, and I don't actually need to compare myself to anyone. Actually, what I need to do is do the work, and trust in the gut, in the goddess, and trust in like, surrender into the process, and just trust that there's going to be a good outcome here. And then I can just off I go and do whatever it is I need to do. So, like that's the difference of, rather than just getting totally stuck and caught up going too hard, can't do it, just sit here and do nothing because everything's too hard. Actually, none of that's true. It's just a story. It's just an imprint that I've been telling myself. I don't actually need to do that. And I guess that's just part of the teachings, is to be able to recognize, when is it just a story that we're telling ourselves, and when is it something that's true?
Yeah, almost always.
Yeah.
It's almost always a narration we've put on our own lives. Yeah. Yeah. So easy to see for other people, right? And so much harder.
Yeah,
in yourself.
absolutely.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about just like cyclical living, if you're into that.
Sure. Yeah, of course. I love a bit of cyclical living.
Yeah. What? I mean, there's many places to start with that, but
yeah. Well, I guess the easiest way to start doing that is through your own body, because it's the most obvious, and it's the, the easiest to track, and it's happening to you, all the time. So, and in that being the menstrual cycle being the place to start that tracking. And there's lots of, ways to do that, like, and lots of kind of ways to be with your blood. But my experience, like for myself and for the women that I've worked with, is like bringing like awareness to the cycle of like how it maps itself in your body. So like really actually knowing, like whether that's keeping track like with an app or a calendar or a bit of paper or like whatever it is, like whatever way that you can start to sort of go, this is the rhythm of my body. That's the like step one of sort of knowing yourself, so you go, oh, actually, what I learned about tracking my cycle for my whole life is that I'm regularly irregular. So I don't have a 28-day cycle. I have a between 27 and 32-day cycle that always changes all the time. And what that has meant for me has been that when I look at how the menstrual cycle connects with the lunar cycle, I bleed all around the different lunar cycles. So I'm not a full moon bleeder or a dark moon bleeder. I'm everywhere because my cycle changes almost every month. But ironically, in perimenopause, I suddenly have a 28-day cycle right now. So I'm kind of like, really? Like, it's taken all this time for a 28-day cycle? Okay, thanks. Thanks, perimenopause. Just throw a spanner into the works here. I know. I actually have this theory. It's like totally just like a made up theory of myself.
I love it
already. But my daughter started bleeding just before her 14th birthday. And we bled like basically at the same time when she had her menarche, which was like cosmic and like, cool. The best thing ever. And then obviously like when you first start bleeding, you're pretty irregular, so a bit all over the place. And I had a period of time when that was happening that my cycle was really like kind of stretching weird. And I was like 40 days and I was a bit like, oh God, please don't be like a menopause baby. Like it's like the last thing that I want. And it was just stretching. And I thought, okay, well, here we are. This is where we're at, like cycle, like stretching itself out. And then it just did this radical shift in that like I'm bleeding every 28 days. And I'm kind of like, I feel like what it is like, I've always been really open with my blood. Like, I put it on my face and I use a menstrual cup and I put it in the garden and there's jars of blood in the fridge. And my kids are just like, oh God, like there's mom's blood again. Like, don't put it on the salad kind of thing, And so I've always been super open. Like it's always been like that. And I kind of think like before my daughter had her menarche, like she kind of just would sort of notice it, but not really care. And now that she's bleeding and like we talk about stuff, obviously, it's almost like my body is giving me a really regular ongoing cycle so that she can see in real time how I can be with my blood, how I can relate to my body, how I have to rest. I have to do all these things. I'm going to do things that, take time out. And she can see that now that it's actually happening, for her, she can see it and then maybe apply that to her life a bit more and go, oh, well, mom's resting. I guess that's something that you should do. Or mom's getting a hot water bottle, or, oh, mom's using a cup. Like maybe I don't want to use these like, gross disposable pads, like maybe there's something to kind of think about. And I kind of feel like it's like this, like my body just kind of going, we really need to embody this full menstrual cycle now that she's seeing it in a different way. And I feel like that's why I've gone to 28 days, because I'm like, there's no other explanation for it. I've never been a 28-day person. Yeah. Like it's so weird. And it's like, the blood's like really bright and there's like plenty of it. It's like I don't feel like I'm super fertile, even though I'm kind of probably not. So I'm like, I just think that I'm having a cosmic experience of being able to embody that, to show her, and that she can witness it in a different place, because, like soon enough I won't bleed anymore and she won't have that map anymore of someone else's way of being with it. So I like that theory. I'm going to go with it.
I like that.
It's totally made up, but
no, all the best things are.
Yeah,
all the deep truths are.
That's it. That's
right?
it.
Yes. Yeah. I wonder too, like, how like the moon pulls the oceans and the tides. And I feel like as women, like our cycles pull each other, like we pull each other into the same orbit. And you're sort of like regulating each other as two bleeding women in the home.
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, when
so
she
cool.
had her menarche, I was actually on day 3 of my cycle when she had her menarche. She'd probably hate me for saying this on a podcast, but whatever. She won't listen to it, so.
Someday
But,
she'll love it.
yeah, that's it. And I was, like day 3 of your cycle is, can in some ways of thinking about, menstrual magic and menstrual education. It's like, this is the vision quest day. Like, this is the deepest kind of day. If you bleed for like 5 days, day 3 is kind of the deepest day of your inner space. Like, it's that call inward, it's the visioning space, it's that real magic space where like all the things that you're creating or dreaming or being are arising. And that she had her menarche when I was on that day, I was like, okay, this just feels so cosmic. Like, I think I might actually cry. And it was so special. And it was so special to be able to do all the things with her that I had been planning. And I sometimes I think that the whole reason that I didn't teach last year was so that I wouldn't be away when she had her menarche, because that probably would have been like a gut punch, because I'm away a lot when I teach, like I have to go away and 4 or 5 days at a time, or 10 days, and I'm not home, and everyone's used to it. I've been doing it for years, but I did have that in my mind of like, shit, what if what if I miss it? Like, that's going to be really awful.
Yeah.
like for me, for her, like, for awkward dad being like, here's your box of stuff, and he'd be fine, but it's, it's not the same. So I'm just kind of like, maybe that was the whole reason I didn't teach, was so that I could be there and be super present and not miss it, not miss something that's really important for me and important for her, even if she doesn't actually think it's very important yet.
But it will be.
We know it will be. That's it. Like, it's creating the imprint, Yeah. So when she, does a workshop and, when she's 48 and sits down and goes, oh, my menarche, be like, oh my God, yeah, it was great. It was awesome experience. It was amazing.
Yeah. Did you prepare a box? Did you?
Yeah, I had a box with all sorts of presents in it, which, being the child of the Chasing the Peak experience, enjoyed telling me that she doesn't like the kind of jewelry I wear, and told me quite clearly what she would like.
Okay, good.
I'm like, oh, well, okay. So so we did that. It was so funny. And then we had a little, I asked her if she wanted to have like a ceremony, and she was like, absolutely not. I don't want to have a ceremony. And then she kind of warmed up to the idea. And so rather than having like a ceremony, we had a tea party with my women's circle, and we invited her in as like, not just as a kid anymore, but as a participant in that space, and had like a beautiful little tea party and just a little honoring circle for her. And she got little cards and presents, and everyone sent her like wishes, and it was beautiful, and, she probably just did that because she knew that I would want to do it. But maybe she really liked it and just, I don't know. Like, I just think it made an imprint, and she has a connection to those women now that feels a little bit different than just, I'm just someone's kid who comes along sometimes because I don't want to stay at home with the boys, Now it's like, no, I get to go to circle,
Yeah.
Because I've always told her, because she'd always want to come with me. Oh, can I come to your circle? And I'd be like, no, you can't come until you're bleeding. Like, that's kind of the thing, like. And then so as soon as she was finished, she's like, I can come in a circle now. I'm like, oh, okay. So I guess we're just going in circles together now. Yeah, that's it. I'm like, cool, great, awesome.
Oh, I love that. I like your story started out with you bringing her to circle like when you're pregnant, right? At like the 38 weeks, and then the new little baby, and then here you are initiating her into circle as a woman.
That's like amazing, actually.
I know.
It's really cool.
It's super really cool. Yes.
And yeah, in terms of that cyclical living for adults or whoever wants to live like that, tracking that cycle is super important. And then, being able to map it according to, where are you in the moon? So how does the moon influence your menstrual cycle? And then noticing, how does that change or feel based on the earth seasons, So how are you living cyclically with the earth seasons? Like, are you even noticing like what the earth is doing? Like, are you even aware of how you can kind of be in that energy? So, when the earth moves through her different points, in the seasonal calendar, like, we can kind of be with that energy and use that energy, whether it's like that we want to build something or grow something or start like doing a big letting go process. Like, we can tap into the energy that's happening. Like all you have to do is look outside to know that, and then work with that. So we've got these like multi layers of
Mm-hmm.
cycles that are happening. So they're all the same cycle, like it's birth, growth, full moon or full bloom, harvest, decay, death, and rebirth. So the same cycles happening just at different speeds, like during the day, during the month for the lunar cycle, in our bodies, in the seasons, in your garden, like in our lifetime as women. Like we're going through those cycles all the time, different speeds, same cycle. And so there's different places to kind of connect in, like tap in with that. So it's really beautiful. And it's funny living where I live. Like I live in the subtropics, like just in the
Mm.
Byron hinterland in Australia. And it's really interesting because we don't really have 4 seasons here. We've got, we have more than 2 seasons. It's more than just wet and dry, but I wouldn't say it's 4. But the earth is still moving through those patterns. The earth is still hitting those points of solstices and equinoxes and, cross quarter days. Like that's still happening no matter what. So what I've found really awesome is to really try and figure out, like, okay, so we don't have a winter, but the earth is still in the winter solstice, like it's still moving into that space cosmically, like, so, but I'm in the southern hemisphere. So what's happening, on my land at that time? So things are still going dormant. I don't have to mow the lawn as much. I don't have to cut everything back as much. Like there's still this kind of retreat happening, but then it's just like, when do certain like plants bloom? So it's like, oh, it's wattle season, like, as we know, because these trees are like blooming, or it's,
Mm.
it's jacaranda time because that tree is, blooming, or whatever's happening. And so it's just really, it's a practice, of kind of
Mm-hmm.
going, okay, on the big picture, the earth is moving through its cosmic, points where it's aligning with the sun, and that's actually what's happening. But how does that look right here in the subtropics where I live? How does the place where I live express that? And so then how can I express that in my own life? Like how can I use
Mm-hmm.
that in my life, or how can I harness that energy, or be with that energy rather than against the energy? Like there's no point in, like, now that we are coming to, like, we're in the full descent of the cycle now.
Mm-hmm.
So like now's not really a time to be, planting. Well, you can plant some things now. So that's the thing. Like even your planting season is like
Mm-hmm.
a bit different. So it's just about learning your territory, like we've got these maps that we work with. So the maps of the, like the earth seasons, and the maps of the life seasons, and the maps of our menstrual cycle, and the map of the lunar cycle. And then it's like, what's your territory? Like how does it show up in your own body? How does it show up in where you live, and how do you experience all of that? So yeah, it's learning how to, navigate the territory that you're in
Mm-hmm.
with a beautiful cosmic map that you have.
Yes, we're always being invited into cyclical living. Like it's everywhere. It's
Totally.
every moment,
Yeah.
right? There's another
Every moment. It's
one.
amazing.
And you're
Yeah.
okay, so you're just about to leave the fall descent and come back to summer. You're gonna,
Yeah. Time traveling. It's
yeah,
good.
you're
It's
gonna,
good times.
I guess, into the past. I think. I
Yeah.
think that's the
Yeah.
way it
Yeah.
goes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Going
You get to
backwards
do
in
summer
time.
again.
I know.
Yeah.
It's actually a little bit crazy to do
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, it's kind of fun though, especially if you travel like around, because I'm going to be traveling just around Samhain actually, or Beltane for
Mm-hmm.
you lot in the Northern Hemisphere. I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually traveling like 2 days after Beltane, but um, you kind of like you're in this portal of like, so right now I'm in the space of the descent, like,
Mm-hmm.
and the space of kind of like death and honoring the ancestors and endings,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of space. And then I'm going to be like time traveling into super growth and fertility and magic. And it's almost like when you're straddling these two spaces, it's
Mm-hmm.
just like what opportunity arises to do some
Yeah,
like
like what will come
fun
up?
magic in that, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so whatever I'm doing in my Samhain space of like, like honoring the, that death space, and preparing the seeds to be, gestating over winter, it's like they're going to get an opportunity to be supercharged by this amazing fertile energy before they kind of go back into their gestation space of the winter. So it's kind of fun,
Yeah, it's a
like to,
special year.
Yeah, and I was back in Canada over Christmas, so I'm coming and going back again.
Mm.
So it's kind of like, yeah, I was in deep winter and then came back to full summer, and now we're like kind of in the descent, going back into the beautiful growth phase. So it's wild. I
Yeah.
mean, time like travel is just a bit wild anyway. I'm a
Mhm.
bit like, wow, that we can just do this so easily. Like it's pretty cool.
It is.
Pretty cool.
It is, yes. Well, I'm really looking forward to connecting with you
You
in
too.
person and
I know, it'd be so fun.
in your workshop. It's going to be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Can't wait to meet
Without a doubt.
everyone and see all the women and yeah, just be a part of a beautiful community. No,
Yep.
it's awesome.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a life-changing experience, something to bring home.
Totally.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No worries at all. Thanks so
love
much
chatting.
for having me. Lovely to
Yeah.
speak. You're so good. Awesome.
Thanks for listening. You can head to Instagram and birth.throughtheveil to see birth pictures or just pictures from each episode. The show notes have links and more ways to connect, along with the link to submit your birth story. I would love to hear it. New episodes of Through the Veil come out every other Tuesday. You can follow, subscribe, share, rate, and review this podcast to be in support.